Now, in the current industry of watches, there's a bit of an oversaturation of vintage reissues as well as heritage models that are flooding onto the market. And of the many brands that do this, I think there's a select few that cement themselves as being some of the best in the category at doing this. And I think one of those has got to be Longines in terms of what they're doing, and probably one of the main contributors to obtaining that status is with the model that we're going to be looking at today with the Longines Legend Diver. Okay, so before we look at this watch, of course, I've already kind of mentioned the idea of heritage design taking place here. So I do want to mention two other awesome heritage design dive watches that are available on teddybaldassarre.com. And we also did a recent review of with the Oris Diver 65. Retro looks, very wearable cases and different options available with different dial colors at that. Also has a riveted, very heavy taper on the bracelet to kind of fit with the theme overall. And then also the Rado Captain Cook. Very much some fusing of heritage elements with more modern approaches with, of course, the sapphire crystal ceramic bezel, and also many different bracelet options and colors to choose from. Probably most notable will be that Beads of Rice style bracelet. So if you've not seen the video of that, I will link to it down below, but also check it out, teddybaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of all the brands we carry, including Rado and Oris. But I'll leave links to both of the products as well as the video if you want to check that out, because I think it might be relevant for those that are perhaps interested in the watch we're going to be highlighting today from Longines. Now, to begin here, I believe it's important to go back and set the stage for this watch. So let's go back to 2007. The industry, very different than what we're seeing today. There was an appeal towards large case sizes and more contemporary designs rather than the over-reliance on nostalgia. In addition, we had yet to see the crazy auction prices and the crazy fascination that came with Rolex vintage timepieces, with steel sports primarily, as well as looking into the world of, say, Patek Philippe high complications. Since then, we have seen a gradual adoption of many brands, of course, to start seeing the interest level as well as the scarcity that comes with vintage for select models and reinterpreting designs from a modern perspective to really meet that need. Yet as this fascination over vintage started to catch on, watch brands increased their focus with creating reissues and vintage-inspired pieces, and Longines were definitely one of the first with their Longines Legend Diver, a near reissue watch originally released back in the early 1960s with the then novel dual crown design, first being released in 2007 without a date, and then followed 2 years later with the added complication of that date window. As a bit of background on the twin crown design diver watches from the 1960s and 70s, from which today's Legend Diver is descending from, most of the original watch cases were manufactured by EPSA of Switzerland in a case design they called their super compressor, and then was used by other brands like JLC, Longines, Bulova, Benris, and countless others. Now with dual crowns, the one at the 2 o'clock is used to rotate the inner diver bezel, and the one at the 4 is used for traditional setting of the time and the date. Now the sheer amount of watches produced in these super compressor style cases makes for a strong argument of their utility at the time, as the quest for creating watches capable of achieving increased depth rating was a goal for many brands of the period. However, in modern context, they provide more differentiation and style more than anything else. Jumping back though to the modern interpretation of the Legend Diver, it follows the typical expectation from Longines to tastefully follow the resemblance of the original design while featuring specification upgrades in order to offer the looks of years prior in a package built for carefree everyday wear. Now first looking at a rundown of the specs of this particular timepiece, and I will mention again in a little bit that there are a few different variations to choose from with this. So the version we're looking at here, case size 42 millimeters, thickness of 12.5 millimeters, lug to lug of 52 millimeters, lug width of 22 millimeters, water resistance of 300 meters, movement is an automatic ETA 831L01, crystal is sapphire, and price $2,300 to $2,400 depending on the strap option. In terms of wear, it's first important again to mention that with the Legend Diver, there are different case sizes that reflect the dimensions of the classic compressor style cases from the mid 20th century. For the sake of this video, we are going to highlight the 42 millimeter option. However, it is important to note that there is also a 36 millimeter variant, which in the compressor style and the longer lugs should offer some respectable presence, while also having an additional option with a different case material in bronze. That was a recent release from this line. So as we're looking at this timepiece, definitely have that as a point of consideration, as many of the aspects of these pieces will reflect over to those. Now, to begin with, pointing out the obvious for this particular version, this watch is going to be on the larger end. However, unlike many instances, the sizing of this piece is done with historical intentions, as the measurements of a 42mm diameter by a 52mm lug-to-lug are a near direct carryover from the original Longines reference 7042 from the early 1960s. These original super compressor watch cases were available typically in either 37 or 42mm variants, and Longines opted to lean strongly in the larger legible feel, dwarfing the traditional 34 and 36mm dress watches that were very popular during the era. The watch, in summary though, is going to wear rather true to its 42mm case, which actually is a nice case size when you're looking at this and considering the style. The real presence though with this one is felt with the lugs that will extend out with just a subtle curve, making it appear a bit larger in totality, except for the very nice thickness of just 12.5mm. With this in mind, the 36mm variant is probably worth considering for many people out there with smaller wrists, as this 42mm is going to wear to the fullest capacity of those dimensions. Now, the version under the spotlight here comes with a mesh style bracelet, which simply put is quite good. The mesh style works incredibly well with the rest of the design and offers a comfortable wear despite the somewhat prevalent hair pulling nature of these styled bracelets. Now, the bracelet is pin adjusted, has a sturdy clasp with several points of micro adjustment, a fold over lock with a secure 2-button release, and demonstrating cutting corners was not a thought for Longines, as you are greeted with some nice machine perlage when opening up the clasp. Moving to the case finishing, so the watch features a consistent high polish with relatively simple case architecture complemented by twin screw down crowns, which feature a cross-hatch finish on the outer surface, a small nod to the original super compressor watches. The crowns operate in traditional fashion, with the 2 o'clock crown offering the bidirectional motion of the internal bezel, and the 4 o'clock being again used to adjust the time, date, and to hand wind the movement within. Ascending upwards towards the crystal, the Legend Diver offers a step design, while its crystal extends vertically, revealing the sides of the protruding sapphire crystal when examining at an angle. And the crystal, although made with modern specification to reduce scratches, does stay true in some aspects given the more elevated format in order to remain more visually consistent to its vintage predecessor while offering unobstructed view of the dial surface underneath. When looking at this dial, it does stay very true to the original, coming in a glossy black lacquer with hour and minute markings printed in off-white. At noon, 6, and 9, we have printed Arabic numerals and a simple outline date window with a black date disc. The hands are a distinctive Longines design with an arrow hour hand, baton-style minute hand, and a long tip second hand. All are polished steel, and then will feature superluminova to match the markers on the dial. In each rectangular hour marker, there's a small square of lume towards the outer end to complement the lume on the hands. The lume overall on this piece is applied in a limited surface area, and as a result of its tinted faux style, is rather underwhelming in its incandescence. Rounding off the central dial, we have an old school Longines logo printed at noon, and off-white to match the other dial elements, along with the automatic and charming vintage script at the 6, with its most prominent feature of its internal elapsed diver's bezel taking up the dial outskirts. The bezel is printed with simple hash marks, dots, and printed numerals, all in the same shade in off-white, as the dial is to create a legible scale for measuring dive time or any other daily activity. In terms of operation, the bezel turns smoothly, has a very subtle audible click, is easy to align, and is operated bidirectionally via the screw down crown at the 2. Considering you screw down the crown when the bezel is in position, there's obviously no risk of accidentally knocking it out of place, which was part of the original impetus for this design. Beneath the closed case back, with this one designed with a scuba diver motif, the Legend Diver runs on the ETA A31L01, a caliber developed for Longines exclusively by ETA, both being swatch screw brands. The movement is well executed and is commonly sent in to be cost certified in many other instances with Longines' catalog. The movement, despite being hidden from view, will offer some up decoration, including some perlage finishing on the bridges and a sign Côte de Genève finish rotor while housing 21 jewels. In addition though, the movement operates at a rarely seen 25,200 vibrations per hour, 3.5 Hz beat rate that has become more synonymous with the coaxial escapement primarily. This slight reduction in the beat rate from 28,800 vibrations per hour, typically seen in many ETA-based calibers, is done to maximize the power from the mainspring, helping this watch achieve a lengthy 64-hour power reserve while also offering a rather retained clean sweep of the second hand. So in summary, 25,200 vibrations per hour, features hacking and hand winding, so hacking stopping that second hand when pulling out the crown to the farthest position, and a power reserve again of 64 hours. So running in parallel with the release of this watch, over the last several years, we've certainly seen quite a bit of other brands getting into the mix when it comes to compressor style watches. Some of them with actual just heritage and history in designing them, and other ones maybe not so much. In terms of really setting the stage for it though, I think a lot needs to be, of course, owed to this watch and kind of paving the way, and I think creating more of a segment or a market from a modern sense for this style of watch. Sure, I think it is maybe more appealing to novelty and nostalgia than rather a true utility with the compressor style bezel internally, but it is still very cool. And in terms of the design as well as the price point at which it falls, I think it is very unique. You're not really looking at watches either slightly above or slightly below that really are competing in the same aspect. This particular version at 42 millimeters is gonna be on the larger end of things, but again, you do have some different variation to choose from if you have a smaller wrist and wanted to really dive into this world of this super compressor design. The 36 millimeters is, interestingly enough, marketed as a woman's watch, but I don't think that should really be the case. I think it's very true to the old school heritage of the model, and I think would be really appropriate on a wide variety of wrists out there, and I would probably classify more as a unisex piece. But over the last several years, this has certainly been a watch that I've just closely associated with Longines overall, and I think that's the case for many people out there, especially when looking at their heritage collection as being a real trailblazer in, I think, ushering in a lot of the fascination, especially in this price range, for vintage-inspired timepieces. But guys, I'd love to see your comments down below. What are your thoughts on this particular Legend Diver? Love to see what you think of it. Do you not like it? Do you like it? Also, if you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, as that is a great way to help out the channel. Also, definitely check out the other video that I mentioned, looking at that Oris Diver 65 versus the Rado Captain Cook, as two other great options maybe to throw into the mix in comparison to the piece that we were looking at here today with the Legend Diver. So video as well as links down below if you want some more information on the product page, as well as where to buy it at teddybaldassarre.com. Also follow us on Instagram. Make sure to follow our second channel as well. Actually, we have two channels. We have a Spanish channel as well as a review channel where we're putting out additional 3 to 7 videos on each week on both of those channels. So definitely check that out. And Instagram to see some cool photos of watches as well as stay up to date with the content. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.